The first time enemy fighters in the jungles of Southeast Asia heard that deep, rhythmic thump, thump, thump echoing through the sky, many of them had no idea what was coming. It wasn't the sound of a fighter jet screaming overhead, nor the distant rumble of artillery. It was something different, something closer. And within seconds, a formation of American helicopters burst through the jungle canopy, descending fast, their rotor blades beating the humid air as soldiers prepared to jump into battle. For thousands of enemy fighters during the Vietnam War, that moment was the first encounter with a machine that would soon become one of the most recognizable symbols of American military power. That machine was the legendary Bell UH-1 Iroquois, better known to the world by a simple nickname, the Huey. Long before it became the icon of a war, the Huey began as an ambitious idea inside the United States Army. In the early 1950s, military planners realized something critical. The helicopters they had simply weren't good enough. They were slow, underpowered, and difficult to maintain in harsh environments. The Army needed a new kind of aircraft, something reliable, powerful, and capable of saving lives as easily as it could deliver soldiers into battle. In 1952, the Army issued a requirement for a revolutionary new helicopter that could perform multiple roles, from medical evacuation to troop transport. More than 20 companies competed to design the aircraft that would answer this challenge, but one design stood above the rest. The proposal from Bell Helicopter would change military aviation forever. The prototype of this new helicopter first lifted off on October 20, 1956 in Texas. Powered by a revolutionary turboshaft engine, it represented a massive leap forward compared to earlier piston engine helicopters. The aircraft was officially named the Iroquois, following the U.S. military tradition of naming helicopters after Native American tribes. But soldiers quickly gave it a simpler name. Its early military designation was HU-1, and when spoken aloud, those letters sounded like Huey. The nickname stuck, and soon the name Huey became legendary. From the very beginning, the helicopter impressed military planners. It was fast, agile, and incredibly versatile. Engineers quickly began improving the design, adding stronger engines, larger cabins, and better rotor systems. These improvements allowed the Huey to carry more troops, more equipment, and even wounded soldiers on stretchers. By the early 1960s, the helicopter had evolved into a powerful multi-purpose aircraft that could adapt to almost any mission the military needed. Then came Vietnam. When American forces began expanding their operations in Southeast Asia, the environment presented enormous challenges. Dense jungles made movement on the ground slow and dangerous. Roads were few, and enemy ambushes were constant. But the Huey offered something revolutionary: mobility from the sky. Suddenly, soldiers could be inserted directly into remote jungle clearings, bypassing dangerous terrain and striking where the enemy least expected it. For the first time in military history, helicopters were transforming how wars were fought. Hueys arrived in South Vietnam in 1962, and their impact was immediate. They became the backbone of what the Army called air mobility, a strategy that allowed troops to move quickly across the battlefield. Entire infantry units could now deploy within minutes. Helicopters could land, unload soldiers, and disappear again before the enemy even realized what had happened. Soon the Huey was everywhere. Some helicopters carried troops into battle, others flew dangerous rescue missions, evacuating wounded soldiers from the front lines in what became known as dust-off operations. Many were armed with rockets and machine guns, turning them into flying gunships that could protect soldiers on the ground. Each version of the Huey served a different role, but together they formed the backbone of American air operations in Vietnam. For soldiers fighting on the ground, the sound of Huey rotor blades often meant survival. When troops were pinned down in the jungle, the distant thumping of helicopter blades was a sign that help was coming. Medics would load wounded soldiers onto stretchers while the aircraft hovered under enemy fire. In countless cases, the Huey saved lives that otherwise would have been lost. But for enemy forces, the sound meant something very different. The sudden arrival of American helicopters could turn the tide of a battle in seconds. Armed Hueys swept over enemy positions, firing rockets and machine guns, clearing landing zones and supporting troops below. The aircraft became a constant presence in the skies of Vietnam, and its distinctive rotor sound soon became one of the most recognizable sounds of the entire war. By the time the conflict reached its peak, more than 7,000 Hueys were operating in Vietnam. They flew millions of missions, transporting troops, rescuing the wounded, and providing fire support across the battlefield. Yet the war was costly. Over 3,000 Hueys were lost during the conflict, and many pilots and crew members sacrificed their lives flying these dangerous missions. Even after the Vietnam War ended, the Huey's story was far from over. The helicopter continued to serve the United States military in conflicts around the world. It flew missions during the U.S. invasion of Grenada in 1983, the invasion of Panama in 1989, and the Gulf War in 1991. During these operations, the Huey once again proved its versatility, performing transport missions, reconnaissance flights, and medical evacuations. Over time, newer helicopters began replacing the aging aircraft. The more advanced Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk gradually took over many of the missions that the Huey had once dominated. Yet despite these replacements, the Huey remained in service for decades, an incredible testament to the strength of its design. The helicopter also spread far beyond the United States. Nations across the world adopted the Huey for military, rescue, and disaster relief missions. Countries in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific operated their own fleets, and in some places the aircraft continued flying more than half a century after its first flight. But perhaps the greatest legacy of the Huey is not just its technology, it's what it represents. For many Americans, the Huey is more than just a helicopter. It's a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and innovation. Images of Hueys flying over jungle landscapes have become deeply connected with the history of the Vietnam War. The aircraft appeared in documentaries, historical footage, and even iconic films, cementing its place in American culture. As the years passed, the United States military gradually retired the remaining aircraft. Many Hueys were preserved in museums, air bases, and memorials across the country. Others appeared in ceremonial flights and historical displays, reminding new generations of the aircraft that once dominated the skies of Vietnam. When the final Hueys were retired from U.S. Army service in the 21st century, it marked the end of an era. For more than 50 years, the helicopter had served the nation through war, peace, rescue missions, and humanitarian operations. Yet even today, when veterans hear the unmistakable thump of a Huey rotor, memories instantly return. Memories of the jungle, memories of the battlefield, and memories of the machine that changed modern warfare forever.